Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's in-depth world affairs report. The United States and Iran are once again at a critical crossroads. On Thursday, American and Iranian officials are set to meet in Geneva for another round of nuclear negotiations. But these talks are happening under the shadow of rising military tensions, regional instability, and the real possibility of conflict. Let's break down what's happening and what could come next. The upcoming meeting in Geneva has been confirmed by Oman's Foreign Minister Badr al-Busaidi, who is acting as mediator between the two sides. He described the talks as a positive push toward finalizing a deal. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has also confirmed he expects to meet U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff face-to-face. According to Iranian officials, there is a good chance for a diplomatic solution, but only if negotiations remain focused strictly on nuclear issues. That is where the first major disagreement begins. The United States, under President Donald Trump, has taken a harder line than previous administrations. Washington says Iran must never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons, not now, not in the future. American officials also want limits on uranium enrichment, permanent restrictions, not temporary ones, expanded inspections, addressing Iran's missile program, and reducing Iran's support for armed proxy groups in the Middle East. However, Iran rejects widening the negotiations beyond nuclear issues. This disagreement alone could derail the talks. While diplomacy continues, military preparations are increasing. The United States has significantly boosted its military presence in the Middle East. Among the deployed assets, the USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, multiple warships in the Arabian Sea, fighter jets, and advanced missile defense systems. This buildup is widely seen as a pressure tactic. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, responded with sharp rhetoric, warning that aircraft carriers can be sunk if attacked. Iran's leadership has stated it is fully prepared for any potential scenario. Both sides say they prefer diplomacy, but both are clearly preparing for war. The biggest sticking point is uranium enrichment. Iran insists it had the legal right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to enrich uranium for peaceful civilian use. Tehran argues that low-level enrichment, the low weapons-grade levels, is a compromise. However, Washington sees enrichment capability itself as the main danger. From the U.S. perspective, any enrichment keeps the pathway to nuclear weapons open. Iran says it will never pursue nuclear weapons and claims its program will remain peaceful forever. But trust between the two nations is extremely low. Iran is demanding the lifting of all sanctions, including U.S., UN, and congressional restrictions. Tehran wants immediate access to frozen assets, restoration of oil exports, reconnection to global banking systems, real, tangible economic relief. Iranian officials say the 2015 deal failed because sanctions relief existed on paper but not in practice. When the U.S. withdrew from the deal in 2018, much of the promised investment never materialized. This time, Iran wants guarantees. However, even if President Trump agrees, U.S. domestic politics may prevent full sanctions removal. Republican lawmakers and pro-Israel groups are likely to oppose broad relief. Another Iranian major demand is a written promise that the U.S. will not attack Iran. This reflects trauma from last year's 12-day conflict between Iran and Israel. In that conflict, Israeli strikes targeted Iranian nuclear sites. Senior commanders were killed. Infrastructure suffered significant damage. Iran now wants long-term security assurances, not just temporary calm. But American administrations rarely give permanent non-aggression guarantees. Israel is watching the talks closely. Prime Minister Netanyahu has consistently argued that Iran must never be allowed nuclear capability. Former Israeli intelligence officials say Israel is more prepared for conflict than ever before. However, there are concerns in Israel that President Trump might accept a deal that appears strong on paper but leaves Iran's infrastructure intact. No clear joint U.S.-Israel strategy has been publicly announced. Vice President J.D. Vance has stated there is no chance the United States will enter a long, full-scale Middle East war, but analysts warn that even limited strikes could spiral. General Dan Kane, chair of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, reportedly cautioned that Iranian retaliation could result in heavy casualties and prolonged conflict. Iran has warned that if attacked, U.S. bases in the region could be targeted. Israel could face missile retaliation. The risk of escalation is real. Despite strong public positions, Iran appears to be signaling flexibility. Possible compromises may include capping enrichment below 3.5%, accepting expanded international inspections, temporarily suspending enrichment for several years, diluting or converting existing enriched uranium stockpiles. These steps could allow President Trump to claim a better deal than the 2015 agreement. At the same time, Iran would preserve long-term nuclear capability. This may be the middle ground both sides quietly seek. Beyond nuclear issues, this negotiation is about survival and power. For Iran, the economy is strained. Protests have erupted. Sanctions have isolated the country. For the United States, preventing nuclear weapons is a top priority. Avoiding another endless war is politically important. Regional stability affects global energy markets. Meanwhile, Middle Eastern countries are bracing for uncertainty. Lebanon, Israel, Gulf states, all are closely monitoring developments. The Geneva talks could produce a breakthrough deal, a temporary pause with continued tension, or a collapse leading to military action. Whoever walks away appearing strongest may shape global headlines, but the true measure of success will be whether conflict is avoided. For now, diplomacy and deterrence are moving forward side by side, and the world is watching closely. That's all for today's in-depth World Affairs report. If you found this analysis helpful, like, share, and subscribe for more global updates. Thank you for watching.